Indie animation is a very popular genre on YouTube. Very popular with people, all very creative, all very passionate. But not to everyone. Not very creative or passionate at all. Especially to this guy. I came across this guy's video who goes by the name Raph's Epic Stuff, who claims that current indie animated shows like Hell of a Boss, Murder Drones, The Amazing Digital Circus, and the main topic of this video, the Gaslight District, has spiraled indie animation on YouTube into a dark age. And if you've read the title, you can guess how I feel about his opinion. Before I do respond to his video, however, it's important to mention that he doesn't explain a lot of his points in detail and jumbles a lot of his points to make a bigger, broader point throughout the video, and there will be moments where I don't elaborate on my own points due to the fact that he doesn't elaborate on his, so any rebuttal I would be having would be purely speculation on my part and also disingenuous.
Back when I reviewed Has-Been Hotel, I was very surprised at how much backlash I got, but ever since I made that video, it seems like things have become so much worse.
Remember when I said in the beginning that he doesn't explain a lot of his points? This is what I meant. Yes, I know he has a video on his channel reviewing the show, but if you're going to make a video condemning all of current indie animation, you can't just brush aside one of its biggest hitters by claiming it's bad, even though you have already reviewed it, in a video where you are condemning all of current indie animation.
I am so glad that the internet has come to the right side and agreeing that Has-Been Hotel is absolutely terrible.
Absolutely terrible is absolutely an exaggeration, but we've got more important topics to get into in just a bit here.
And since Hell of a Boss Season 2 ended with what is probably the worst ending to any TV show I've ever seen,
you need to watch more TV. Try the Season 3 finale of Invincible, but this time watch away with your eyes open. Your exaggeration isn't leaving much room for taking your words at face value. Hyperbole is not your friend.
I really thought we'd hit rock bottom with indie animation. I thought people had finally acknowledged the problems with Vivienne Medrano.
Vivienne's primary problem is that at literal worst, her writing is decent than her flaws. And at best, her fanbase is brain dead. It's really unfortunate she has to deal with that.
People would stop supporting Glitch Studios, and the world would finally start healing again. Then the Gaslight District came out.
Well, considering how terrible this video is about to get, I'm glad your media literate fantasy never came to fruition.
So before I start, I guess I should explain my full thoughts on Glitch Productions. Murder Drones is not very good. I tried watching it twice, but I could never understand what the show was about after episode 1.
Robot drones in a world without humans, whose only protection against the far capable executioners was doors, which were opened by a rebellious teenager doofus named Uzi. That's what the show was about after episode 1.
It's really hard to follow because all of the characters look alike and the plot never really made any sense.
I'll get into what he says about the plot in a second, but you need to get your eyes checked if you seriously cannot tell the difference between Uzi, N, J, V, etc. And I love how you show a clip of background worker drones that do look the same to back up your point, even though that's exactly what they are. Background worker drones, they have no relevance to the plot. And even in the same clip you show, the worker drones have distinguishing features to separate them from each other. It's almost like if you actually engage with a show, you'll notice these things. But even after all that, in the end, characters looking alike is a personal issue. Plain and simple.
I almost felt bad, but then I realized that most fans could never tell you what it's about. Ask the viewers to explain the plot of the last few episodes and watch them shiver. The most you'll get is people saying, I like N. I like when he said the N-word and then murdered all the drones.
Murder Drones does something artists with skill tend to employ now and then. It's called show don't tell, and that's not to say nothing is told, but that is to say if it's on your second monitor, or perhaps if your mind is distracted, you may miss subtle or sometimes blatant storytelling elements being presented. Like the Murder Drones' physical reactions to sunlight, specifically UV light. The fact that the audience of Vivienne and Glitch include people who can't explain their way out of a paper bag does not mean the show's quality does not exist. Maybe you should have tried harder. No media should be holding your hand to read the page. Murder Drones is relatively easy to follow as long as you retain a few nods of information, like you should be doing for any narrative, and glean the two major shifts in the pace the show has. Yes, only two. The cabin and the flashback. If you were confused otherwise, it's because you simply were not paying attention. God bless you if the words absolute solver sound unimportant to you. However, as a big fan of the show that understood the entirety of it in my first viewing, I accept your challenge. And I assume by the last few episodes you mean episodes 6 through 8, since those are the episodes that confused a lot of people, aka people who didn't engage with the show like you. But anyway, to avoid spoilers, Uzi, V, N, and another character I won't name go into an abandoned lab to uncover the secrets of a dark conspiracy, all the while a mysterious force manipulates their quest in order to achieve its sinister plot.
Honestly, I think the reason the show is popular is because it's a masterpiece compared to Hell of a Boss. In fact, I think the only reason Amazing Digital Circus got huge is because it released back when people started to turn on VipsyPop.
It's so strange that in your own personal world is so small that the only reason TADC could possibly be popular is due to the failure of another show you also happen to watch. Exit your bubble.
This is back when that written by VipsyPop meme started, which depicted Digital Circus as a more charismatic and favorable alternative to the crude and immature world of Hell of a Boss, and it probably made people think that it was a lot better than it actually was. But Amazing Digital Circus is whack. Besides the first episode, it's just filler.
Gonna pause you right there. The phrase "it's just filler" is a wonderful tool for people who either choose to or fail to engage with a narrative. TADC to date has zero filler. From the start, the setup is that there is no escape, and that these characters and their psychosis or mental stabilities will be changing. This is part of why the first episode's conclusion has what some would consider an iconic, exaggerated usage of the word, moment of Pomni effectively losing her mind as she comes to terms with her imprisonment. You may be wondering why I'm yapping more than you did in this moment. We'll get to that, but for now, reference an earlier phrase. There's value in explaining your thoughts.
It looks like one of those animations where Freddy Fazbear, Minecraft, and Among Us are all playing Squid Game, except that at least those animations try to have fun with themselves, but Digital Circus never has any fun with its concept. It just coasts on its supposedly dark themes while playing lip service to things like people dealing with new bodies, or the world having weird physics.
You just said, and I quote, Digital Circus never has fun with its concept, and yet your next sentence included the phrase, people dealing with new bodies or the world having weird physics. Let's just pretend for a moment that what you said is correct and not the result of a lack of neurons firing. Digital Circus never has fun with its concept, which immediately begs the question, fun in what way? This happens quite often where people suggest something is a problem but provide absolutely no solutions or supporting alternatives. Your criticisms fall flat because they lack anything other than a lack of attack. There's no gunpowder in your claim, no blade on the hilt of your sword. But I'll do you one better. I'll explain the counter to your criticism. TADC has fun with the following concepts within its setting. Destruction of identity, loss of agency, the distortion of body and mind, creatures that consume souls, an endless unspeakable void, a different endless void, the concept of bodily code error damage, fixed with a snap of fingers, the creatures that gain awareness with simple exposure to the corrupted world, being instantly killed and reset, the crushing mundanity of leadership, psychosis and desperation, and let's not forget the corruption of code. I realize you may have missed those details, again, neurons. What's that phrase though? There's a loss in value when you fail to explain your thoughts, but you may be thinking, that's not a phrase, it wasn't worded that way. If you were thinking this, you weren't paying attention to the previous 30 seconds, and I'd recommend you tap twice on the left side of your video to hop your way backward and engage those neurons this time around. Editing Zach here. As of writing this script, episode 5 of the Amazing Digital Circus released, and my god, your argument just aged like sun-dried spoiled milk. I mean, they rapid-fired a bunch of different adventures, each one revealing one of the main cast's personal enjoyments, all the while deepening the characters and delving into their backstories during the Firefly and bar scenes, causing massive implications and shifts in their character interactions and setting up future events for the main cast in the near future. And on top of all of that, they had a goddamn anime section for Gangle. How is that not having fun with the show's concepts?
All the while giving you a bean of character development in every episode.
I don't even know where to begin with what you just said about the Amazing Digital Circus, but I'll tear it apart nonetheless. Episode 2 explores the making of the adventures that Kane develops for the main cast. Through Pomni accidentally clipping through the level with an NPC named Gummigoo, not only allows us, the audience, to see how things work behind the scenes, but at the same time forcing Pomni into a situation where she has to adapt to the strange world she was transported in to help and comfort an NPC who is experiencing a similar existential crisis, just like she did in the first episode, ultimately giving Pomni some comfort in her own situation while showing off a trait of her empathy, all the while showing off how the rest of the main cast deal with their adventures with their unique personalities and even more. Where is the filler? Episode 3 takes a break from Pomni to explore Kinger and Zubul, both of whom at this point in the series were not as fleshed out or prevalent compared to the others, like Jax with his eccentric asshole personality, Ragatha with her toxic positive attitude, and Gangle with her constant, fragile, terrified self. We're able to explore who Kinger really is beneath his apparent dementia due to the setting of the episode taking place in a dark haunted mansion, keyword dark, allowing his true self to shine. Presumably because, as revealed by a demon and later by himself in the episode, he had a wife that ended up abstracting and was only able to touch her while in the darkness of his pillow fort. A good memory, something that is cherished by him because, as he said himself, in this world the worst thing you can do is make someone think they are not wanted or loved. A virtue he stands by even when in his forgetful state, because he does not want a repeat of what happened to his wife. On the other side of the episode, we have Zubul, who we get to see in a therapy session with Kane, has identity issues as they don't know what they are, acting as the reason as to why in every episode of the show, we see her appearance subtly change with her new body parts in an attempt to fix her issues. However, unlike with Kinger, her role in the episode does not end with catharsis, instead with a twist of spotlight as the therapy session switches over to Kane. Kane, who at this point has been presented as a wacky, eccentric god, starts to break mentally and or more accurately glitch since he is an AI, resulting in Zubul reluctantly attempting to soothe Kane over despite his nonsense rambling about the Wild West, a major hint at his programming beginning to fail aside from the brief disassociating he experienced before. Where is the filler? And finally, episode 4, where it explores Gangle and her struggle with pursuing her dreams, aka her art, versus the logical, safe path of going to something like business in the fast food industry. We get to see how she feels on the inside about this dilemma, her insecurity and doubt when it comes to if it's a good idea to pursue her dreams or not, resulting in a massive show-don't-tell sequence throughout the episode on how her attempts to make the logical, safe path decision deteriorates her own personal happiness, resulting in the end in what I personally interpret as her trying to take the shortcut back to the lobby before being saved by Kane, all the while also giving us more character work for everyone else as well. Zubul encouraging Nature towards Gangle to not give up on her art, how Jack's in reality when not surrounded by wacky things for him to mess with, Pomni coming to terms with Gummigu's death, and some of Ragatha's true thoughts about Gangle beneath her toxic positive attitude when under the influence of the stupid sauce. Where is the filler?
The plot is just a huge mystery box, which I can't stand. Like, can this style of writing just die already? I really thought that after The Rise of Skywalker that we were over the J.J. Abrams mystery box.
You know, stories didn't start existing 10 years ago, right?
But it's like the main inspiration behind most shows nowadays. If a writer is smart, they will have their characters want to explore their strange world so that they naturally get clues that slowly piece together what's going on.
I'm confused. Are we still talking about TADC, in which Pomni explores areas when she has a chance and outside of their little games quite literally cannot leave the main area without ending up in a maze? Did we watch the same show? Oh, right, you weren't paying attention. Sorry, I forgot.
But in this show, the characters just lounge around with zero curiosity of their surroundings until the last few episodes, where these writers have to suddenly come up with answers to these elementary school mysteries. What are their backstories? Does Ragatha have sex with Horse? What does CNA stand for? What could it all mean?
The show is not even over yet. What the hell are you talking about the writers suddenly making up answers? But to touch on your main point, however, the main cast literally have already tried to escape the digital circus before Pomni arrived and failed. Why should they continue to run headfirst into the same brick wall if it gets them nowhere? That would literally drive them insane. And you know what happens when you go insane in the digital circus? Abstraction, baby! However, because of the characters' smart decisions to not purposely drive themselves insane, the show still manages to progress the mystery forward by showing in each episode the cracks in Kane's psyche as he glitches become worse and worse, alluding to an eventual meltdown or a big bad event with Kane, which would uncover the mystery of the digital circus since he's the grand designer of it all. All this to say was all done by someone smart like Gooseworks, unlike you.
C and A stands for Cain and Abel. Kinger is probably Abel. He made the circus, and Cain, meaning that the others are all NPCs. That's why there was no one at the computer at the end of episode 1.
Right, yeah, of course.
The first episode sits at over 300 million views, which I think makes it the most viewed episode of a show of all time, yet absolutely nobody talks about it. At least, nobody talks about it for its quality. You see people mention it every so often the same way people bring up Lackadaisy, Murder Drones, or every other show. Not because they're good, but because they're indie animation, and that sucks.
This is such a strawman fallacy, and not even a well-hidden one at that. It dismisses the numerous other reasons people like these shows like Lackadaisy and Murder Drones. Just because you claim it to be the case does not mean it actually is the case. It's like if you said people only like Infinity War because it has the Avengers in it, when in actuality it's because of its great character work, high-stakes plot, visually fantastic fight scenes, and its shocking yet meaningful ending. Either provide proof why people supposedly don't like these shows because they're indie animated, or don't make the claim in the first place.
I really hate the way these shows rely on the goodwill of their fans in order to string them along with a story that will never be good.
This is coming from the same guy that just said this about the Amazing Digital Circus a minute ago.
But in this show, the characters just lounge around with zero curiosity of their surroundings until the last few episodes, where these writers have to suddenly come up with answers to these elementary school mysteries.
When the show isn't even finished, by the way. A story will never be good if you don't engage with it. Get that through your thick head.
They just keep telling you that it'll pay off someday, only for it to be revealed that the writers never had any idea what they were doing.
This is not an objective statement, but rather a subjective opinion of what you think the quality of these shows' payoffs are. And considering everything you've said thus far, I think I'll stick with the writers supposedly having no idea what they're doing.
And now we arrive at Glitch Studios' most recent show, the Gaslight District. So to start, I want to say that I don't criticize in the animation the same way I do other shows. These shows are not easy to make, and they don't have the resources large productions do, which is why I prefer to analyze the parts that don't depend on money to be good. Like the writing.
Well, now we're cooking with gas.
But with that being said, the animation for this show is basically incomprehensible. People keep saying it's the Spider-Verse style, but the reason that art style is impressive is because despite how cluttered it is, everything is perfectly clear. If you make a show look insane, but I can't tell what's going on, then where's the skill?
The fault, similar to the previous mention, lies with you. This is to say there's a lack of clarity that can occur in animation. There is also a lack of understanding that can occur from the audience's side. Not every audience member can track what's happening in a fight scene in Spider-Verse even.
On top of that, the animation for the show is really ugly. But Rafe, don't you know that that's on purpose? Well yeah, I do like when shows get gross. True fans would know that I'm a huge fan of JoJo's, and that show is horrifying. But this show isn't gross in an interesting way. It's gross the way that Velma is gross. That show starts with cockroach sex. This show starts with a fly eating poop. The setting is gross for shock value.
This is a common mistake people make when dismissing a media's setting. Shock value, functionally, is something that's occurring for no reason other than garnering reaction. The actual useful purpose of shock value is to either use as a surprise for either a change of pace or to set a tone. For example, in the Gaslight District itself, which you fail to understand, performs a simple showcase of disgusting dead creatures, splattering death, and excrement that sets your expectations for the crude existence that these people will treat as totally normal. This is not shock value, it's the setting. Also, JoJo's not gross, it's just weird.
Kind of like how Has-Been Hotel is gross because edgy hell Tumblr show.
Okay.
These shows keep trying to outcompete each other on who can be the most disgusting, violent, and crude, but now it's just become boring.
That tends to happen when you expose yourself to too much of something. If you watch tons of horror movies, a standard experience that scares most people will do nothing for you. This is not a hard concept to understand, so please start accounting for yourself when you engage with media.
But the reason I'm bringing this up is because the story is kind of impossible to follow with how crazy the visuals are. And it's really funny to see other people talk about how good this show is, even though they also have no idea what's going on.
Let's just pause and address a problem you've shown several times as a consistent error of yours in this video. You not understanding or being able to follow visuals does not mean everyone else can't either. You'd either need to present an example and say, what happened here? Then have people reveal they have no idea. Like, my favorite question to ask people is in Invincible Season 3 Episode 7, when asking people, what did Invincible say to the heroes to get them to stop fighting him? There's an example of the audience not having a clue. In other words, stop shoving your incompetence onto other people and pretending they're all you.
But to be fair, I think the reason the show is incomprehensible is because if you actually understood it, your brain would explode. So try to keep up here. This guy is Jack. Jack is running because he found out Mel is human and now the others want to kill him. But why doesn't Jack just tell the others that Mel is human? He could literally start shouting it in the street and he would win, but instead he just starts this stupid car chase.
You just described the opening scene perfectly, but the very obvious reason he doesn't decide to scream it out onto the streets as if anyone would actually care or even pay attention to the clearly displayed crazy person is because he's very visibly in distress and overcome with fear, overriding his rationality.
It's not until his lungs are crushed that he tries to say something, but not before shooting the crew and getting surprised that they're immortal, even though he should already know that because that's literally the point of this show.
Jack is in fact not surprised, but rather scared because he knows he's trapped. He only shoots the smiling dead out of fear-induced instinct because that tends to happen when you're being chased by a gang of bloodthirsty killers.
See, in this show, everyone is immortal, but not in a way that makes sense. We see people come back, but their injuries don't get fixed. So do they not need these parts anymore?
Considering in the next scene with the smiling dead their bullet wounds are gone, we can assume in good faith that they are able to regenerate from any form of physical harm, as well as the fact that they literally show Jack being dead only for him to come back to life.
I mean, Jack couldn't speak when his lungs got crushed, even though this is a world where you can talk with a hole in your head or being fully decapitated. Why did you even crush his lung?
Because, based on the show you weren't watching closely, injuries slow down and can surely incapacitate people despite their immortality. They won't die, but if you chop their legs off, come on, like, they'll slow down, come on, come on.
Don't you want to find out who did this?
Find out who did what, exactly?
Why are we hunting Jack? Oh, what, Jack?
Apparently not.
It's almost like Mud is a bad person alongside the rest of the Smiling Dead, and the show acknowledges that.
If your goal is to silence him forever, why are you gonna drop him into the ocean where he can be rescued later?
Literally in the scene where Jack is falling down in the ocean, we see dozens of other victims down there with him. Who is going to rescue Jack? Who is even gonna care? This show is filled with bad people, and it knows that.
Why not encase him in cement? That's what I thought they meant when they said cement.
I will agree with you there. I was also confused on why they used the word cement when they were clearly just going to drown him. It just doesn't seem like a good word usage.
Why not tear him to pieces? Why not use
Chemical disincorporation.
I'm going to trust the audience to know why those two suggestions are utterly brain dead when this is the same guy that just said everyone in the Gaslight District is immortal. But let's just think about for a second why the method of drowning works. You are changing the ocean floor for however long it takes the vines to dissolve, and you're unable to move or remove them, versus you getting melted away and feasibly heal from said destruction. It's almost like the point of the method is ensuring you can't be interacted with without ridiculous effort, and considering the fact that many people in this show are bad people, as it's clearly shown us throughout the pilot, I doubt anybody in the Gaslight District would even care enough to attempt to rescue Jack.
Rafe, stop talking so much about plot holes. This show is about the characters, not the plot. I mean, that's what I've been doing, but sure, I'll play your game. The show follows 4 characters: Kenny, Mud, Breadhead, and
Melancholy.
If there was an algorithm that took in every indie animated character, you would get Mel. In fact, here's a guide on how to create your own original indie character. First, draw these big, huge, crazy eyes. Then next, give them like a psychopath smile with pointy teeth. Then give them a quirky personality. Then make them a lesbian or something. I don't know.
It's funny you mention that because from what I can recall, Pommy doesn't seem to be a lesbian, and neither is Uzi. Are you sure you just aren't being a moron? Because Pommy also doesn't have a psycho smile either. And Uzi doesn't have giant eyes either, but a quirky personality. Well, you know, we hate those in every show. We need some dry lawyer types who follow the book and don't cause events in the world to occur. We need some sleepers who really let the environment drag them wherever they go. Because we all love those. Those are just so perfect in every show that they happen in.
So Mel's goal in this episode is to hide the fact that she's human by stealing a human egg from heaven and destroying it in public. But why? She says it's to get rid of suspicion that she's human, even though we never see such suspicion.
You're actually insane. The literal event that the show begins with is a single person having an inkling that she's a human and trying to merely escape a violent gang that's been twisted to hunt him down and kill him over it. We quite literally, 10 minutes in, watch Jack specifically flip out at the mere sight of black blood, which narratively lets us know even that is a deadly sign at first glance. The suspicions are then covered in detail by the way of her telling one person and the information traveling like a rapid chain rumor. The suspicions have been kept at bay by Ken acting quickly. Why aren't you watching this show? It's right there! It's right there!
After all, if anybody did suspect her, all they'd have to do was nick her arm to check her blood, right? You could do the Thor thing with Loki and have a character shoot her in the head. And if she's human, she dies. But if she isn't, she'll be fine. There's no way anybody could hide their humanity in this world, right?
And why exactly would anyone in said world, in their right mind, in the Gaslight District, cross a member of the Smiling Deck and risk getting cemented by them trying to nick Mel's arm?
Her trying to come up with this ridiculous roundabout plan to prove she's innocent should only make them more suspicious of her identity. Honestly, I don't understand why Mel is so desperate to be here. This place is disgusting and uninhabitable. Why would you want to live amongst a group of horrible murderers that will literally kill you just because of what you are? None of them sympathize with you.
Mel, look at you, huh? Delicate, unscarred, all your original limbs, untouched by this putrid world. And I would like to keep it that way. Now look at us. Crusty, musty, rusty all over. You ain't one of us. And you never will be.
At least except for Pot of Greed here. But why? Why does Ken actually care about her in a way the other crew members don't?
So far, because he sees her as his kid, from the fact he effectively raised her.
He's apparently willing to kill anyone that finds out she's human, despite the fact that Mel is really selfish and constantly has her cover blown through carelessness or just straight up telling people.
That's so weird, because it's almost like he cares about her like she's his kid. What a crazy concept.
The only reason they had to kill Jack is because she was reading necrophilia porn in front of him and got a nosebleed.
So you were watching the show. Then what was this comment?
She says it's to get rid of suspicion that she's human, even though we never see such suspicion. She's constantly demanding to be taken seriously, despite the fact that she's constantly getting everyone in trouble.
And do you mind explaining why this character flaw is so bad, considering it has absolutely appeared in other projects besides the Gaslight District?
The other two characters are basically filler, because every indie animated show needs to have a big cast for some reason.
Every show, including indie animated shows, needs a cast, whether big or small. I hate to bring up Infinity War again, but that movie has a big cast and they still made it work. So I don't really see what a big cast hinders in terms of the writing quality of a show. And by the way, Gaslight District has 6 characters, as well as Digital Circus, and as does Murder Drone. So if you think 6 is a big cast, you need to get your brain checked.
Zombie Man is just a sleazy gangster, and Breadhead is just a guy with a weird character design. That's it. You'd think that in 20 whole minutes you'd be able to develop these characters even a little bit, but most of it is this Teen Titans Go dialogue. Like, the show is insecure about maintaining your attention span without having the characters constantly moving and jumping all over the walls. But you can't fool me. I'm a zoomer. Mel's plan is to break into heaven because heaven and the angels are actually the bad guys.
Never heard that one before.
And the plan is so horrible, it makes me wonder how anyone chose to go along with it. In fact, she almost gets caught at the very beginning, but is saved by one of the guards suddenly deciding to kill his searching crew. I mean, it wouldn't be indie animation without having villains that can't do anything right. Then they do the thing where they steal uniforms from the guards and dispose of the bodies, but like, Aren't those bodies gonna come back?
Sure, at some point, but reasonably not soon enough to forward their foolish plan, regenerate and regroup to figure out who to tell on the matter of what happened. They're cargo unloading guards, not the dudes sitting at the button. They'd be someone else's task to ensure nothing goes wrong, and definitely not get distracted.
That's like the whole thing with this show. Part of Mel's plan is for Zombie Man to sneak into the camera room, somehow, and to kill the guard. Then later the guard comes back to life 5 minutes later and they're all surprised.
No, only Zombie Man is surprised, and he was distracted at the time from an unexpected murder of some rando he doesn't understand Ken going after. You watched this show, right?
The fact that Mel asked Ken if he's proud of this clown plan is insane.
Everything we know up to this point about Mel would tell us she'd ask that, and think the plan is fantastic. She doesn't have a reason to think otherwise. As far as she's concerned, she's thought of everything.
So Ken decides to change the plan and attack this random guy in the lab, which like, what? He was the one telling Mel to be careful, but now he's going to ruin everything?
Yes, we see all the signs that he's already fixated on this little field trip, from him looking at a picture prior and being generally distracted. But more importantly, let's jump back to 9:45 where Ken explains what the Inferno is like. Recognize anyone? Perhaps a torturer, someone from his past, bled into his memory or directly involved. It's almost like this incomprehensible show provided you a nugget of information on your plate you ignored.
We don't even know who this guy is, nor do we learn anything about him. Yet we're supposed to find this, what, cathartic? Cool.
You thought the show wanted the audience to feel some kind of catharsis when it goes out of its way to obfuscate and only provide crumbs before the events that clearly is going to be a factor in later events?
Yeah, this is cool. Oh man, I need a heater because this is too cool. Look at all the poses, the music, the animation. Isn't this all so cool? So is he gonna come back to life now, or does eating his brain count as permadeath?
Maybe. We don't know. It's almost like this is the first episode and it's simply trying to set up the world that we're going to be exploring for the rest of the series.
Why not just eat the brains of everyone you want to silence? Or is the next episode gonna start with him shitting the brain into a toilet? That'll be fun. Anyways, Mel gets to the egg, but not before reaching its terrifying guardian. Finally, a fight where she'll have to struggle and show her skills and why she deserves to get this...
Fuck.
Ah, shit. Bad intel.
No, Mel, that was good intel. This thing is so frail and old that you won't even have to try to steal the egg. In fact, it'll basically let you kill it. Doors will disappear and reappear to let you pass. Even when you fall off the ledge, everyone you need will be right there to catch you.
Do our pinky promises mean nothing to you?
No, man, you changed the plan. Anyways, they escape the pathetic Heaven security and get back home where Ken gives a cringe edgelord monologue about killing humans before telling Mel to break the egg, where we're left with a cliffhanger. I think the biggest problem with most indie animated shows is that they expect us to already like these characters before we've even met them. We don't learn anything about BreadTube, Zombie Guy, or even Ken really outside of their intro scenes, yet the show acts like we're already familiar with all of them.
First off, no, it doesn't. And second off, maybe the reason we don't get much characterization for everyone else besides Mel, even though you don't even explain what characterization or what characterization is lacking with everyone else, is because one, she's the main protagonist and thus the episode is more focused on developing her since she's the character we will be following the most in the series, and two, this is only the pilot. Crazy concept, I know.
Mel is a pretty insufferable character. She's stupid, impulsive, and entitled.
It's almost like those are her character flaws that drive the conflict in the plot, although I'm not sure where you got the idea that she was entitled, but since you refuse to elaborate on that, I'll just assume you think her wanting to be a genuine part of the Smiling Dead, aka her family, is entitled behavior.
Oh yeah, she gets everything she wants from the story without even gaining a scratch. Well, she'll get injured, but those injuries just disappear when it's convenient for the plot.
Did it ever cross your mind, for even a second, that maybe she got patched up before the ceremony? And not to mention, her outfit is quite literally bandages in order to hide any possible damage beneath. Brain dead criticism.
It might genuinely be the messiest pilot I've ever seen. It's worse than the Has-Been Hotel pilot, the Amazing Digital Circus pilot.
It's worse than the Ramshackle pilot.
Losers like us. We're all we've got on this bitch of an earth, so.
I've already touched on Has-Been Hotel and ripped apart your points on Digital Circus. However, concerning Ramshackle, do you mind explaining why that line is bad in particular? Or do you have so little empathy that you can't possibly imagine a homeless scrap like Vinny being upset at the world and calling it a bitch?
And even the Hell of a Boss pilot. Yet for some reason, this is seen as the best one. Of course this isn't gonna be as bad as Hell of a Boss. It simply can't be. That show had 2 seasons to be terrible.
Media literacy at its finest when it comes to the flack Hell of a Boss gets, but again, since you refuse to elaborate, I see no reason why I should either. I mean, I am considering making a video on Stolitz one day, but we'll just have to wait and see.
This show only had 20 minutes. It's honestly amazing that the show is as bad as it is. Creating this many plot holes in one episode, assassinating such flat characters, these guys are pioneers. It's not like everything needs to be explained in one episode, but like, we need some something.
We did get something. We got solid world building for how this world operates, what its denizens are like, what the main threat is, and what their motivations are. All of that combined with character work that sets up the show nicely for future episodes after the pilot.
This episode is so inefficient, showing us only one relationship between two characters and establishing this villainous base of authoritarian angels that are too stupid to live. It's such hacky writing to constantly paint a villain with religious imagery, just so that you can say that they're too entitled and stupid, unlike our base protagonists who are clever and cool despite being a bunch of degenerates.
1, their plan literally falls apart because they aren't that clever, and 2, this is hack writing. Why? I mean, just because it's not an original idea does not mean it's automatically bad. You're judging a book by its cover.
Just because you told me they're evil doesn't make them the bad guy.
Condemning someone to eternal drowning in silence is totally not evil behavior, nor is killing 3 others because they heard the wrong words. Heavenly behavior, truly it is. Mel quite literally kills several sources just to present her plan before getting approved, by the way.
If you want to come up with a cool character design for your villains, how about coming up with your own ideas?
You do know what character design means, right? As in their appearance? Because you proceed to describe improvements that have nothing to do with their appearance, aka their character design.
I mean, you could have explored this strange world by focusing on developing the unique social challenges and problems these characters would have to face living in a world where no one can die, but instead they just wrote about the same thing they always do, a class dispute where evil oppressors are trying to prevent people from expressing themselves.
I'm sorry, you've confused me. Prevent people from expressing themselves? Where'd you see that? The Gaslight District citizens can do whatever they please. Oh wait, you mean they're not allowed to break into a security location and murder people randomly inside and then destroy a prophetic item? Damn, the oppression!
These people don't know how to write about anything but themselves.
You say this, yet the only individual who's displayed that here is you, literally altering events that were directly displayed to you in order they happen and to pretend they didn't happen in the first place.
I'm honestly kind of tired of every indie animated show being some cynical postmodernist view on reality.
Care to explain why that's a bad thing?
Why can't they ever write a story about good people? Or if you're gonna write a story about bad people, acknowledge that they're bad guys.
The Gaslight District acknowledges that they're bad people, as shown with the opening narration of the Rotlings being people of endless indulgence, as well as in the opening scene the smiling dead clearly enjoying and having fun trying to kill Jack. Murder Drones is about a good person, Uzi, uncovering the mystery of the show, alongside bad people, aka the disassembly drones, redeeming themselves. The Amazing Digital Circus is about innocent, keyword, innocent, people trapped in a place with no exit as they attempt to keep their sanity intact while also battling their internal struggles. Ramshackle is about good people forced to do bad things in order to survive a life of homelessness and hardship. Hell of a Boss acknowledges that IMP are bad people, you're just a part of the fandom that can't engage with the show for the life of them, and Hasbin Hotel is literally in the premise of the show about bad people trying to redeem themselves into good people. Watch the shows with your eyes open, please.
Why can't we get something that tries to be beautiful instead of constantly being disgusting? Something that can be uplifting and inspiring rather than just another depressing deconstruction of humanity that only exists to tell us how horrible we are. It's not difficult to point out the flaws in something.
As a writer myself, it is actually hard to point out the flaws in something. We all have biases and flaws about ourselves that prevent us from either seeing the complexities of an issue or topic, or have internal truths that we've already accepted as the truth. A lot of the times resulting in a deconstruction of the topic at hand with little nuance or complexity that the topic actually has in reality.
Rafe, you shouldn't criticize indie animation so harshly.
Hollow rebuttal, I concur.
At that point, what even is indie animation? Is it indie to have a popular channel with tens of millions of subscribers, billions of views, dozens of animators on payroll, producers, supervisors, and, you know, being on Netflix and Amazon Prime? To me, indie animation was always about one guy running on passion to make a story real. It was a place where people were allowed to compete based on skill rather than money, showing off their skills to make things we didn't usually see on TV.
This is disingenuous for a multitude of reasons. One, indie animation is not limited to the capacity and skill of one person. This never was the case and never should be the case. Care to explain why shows like Murder Drones, The Gaslight District, Hell of a Boss, etc. shouldn't be considered indie animation because they have more than one singular person working on them? Because newsflash, buddy, animation takes time, especially for just one person. 2, the whole point of indie animation was to get the skills and talents of many independent creators out into the world without having to deal with the bureaucracy and limited control of their shows by large corporate entities like Netflix and HBO Max, who would gladly cancel great shows and wipe them off the face of the earth if they meant they could save an extra penny. 3, indie animation was never a competition to begin with. That was never the point of indie animation to begin with. However, since you decide to make it a competition, I would love to see your proof on why these shows are simply in it for the money and not because of talent, passion, or skill, or are you just going to go and spat out statements without backing any of them up again?
We used to get entire stories within a single short video that had likable characters we might get to see again someday. But nowadays, indie animation is a bloated, saturated, and overproduced nightmare, making videos that are unsustainable, forcing themselves to reach the 20-minute mark to give themselves the appearance of professionalism, while also giving us a story that's the animated equivalent of DLC.
Subjective opinion, yet again, all based around one's media literacy, which you have proven you are not educated on in the slightest.
Incomplete stories made to trick us into watching more until they get bored and give us a half-assed ending.
The Gaslight District just got started. The Amazing Digital Circus is not finished. Hell of a Boss is not finished. Ramshackle is not finished. Hazbin Hotel is not finished. And Murder Drones having a half-assed ending is the result of you, again, refusing to engage with the show.
I have no problem with a small team becoming an official organization, but I'm tired of them masquerading as indie animation just to encourage fan support out of some sort of virtue.
Sir, you are trying to prove a positive, and even then, a company like Glitch Productions still relies on the support of people and viewers watching their pilots to justify making more. Because you don't have a big corporate money to piss away on everything that gets slammed on their desk. You want to know why? Because they're indie.
They have zero respect for the writing process, yet they claim to be these precious artists whose vision must be protected from evil producers.
Yes, because it has been proven time and time again that said evil producers will gladly cancel any show, such as Inside Job, or wipe it away from existence, such as Final Space, so long as it saves them another penny.
But the reality is that any of the characters from Alan Becker's videos have more development in a single video than any VipsyPop or Glitch Production character has ever had.
Define development. Do you mean in terms of budget, quality, storytelling? Don't use words without elaborating on what you mean when using them. We can't read your mind.
Meat Canyon's videos are able to show disgusting and horrifying imagery that is infinitely more creative and meaningful than anything in Gaslight District.
What is disgusting and horrifying to an individual person is a subjective opinion and also depends on the artist's intention as well. Meat Canyon's imagery is meant to elicit disgust in a more traditional sense of making the viewer uncomfortable. Meanwhile, the Gaslight District uses disgusting imagery to set what the setting of the show is, as well as display the wacky nature of what the show is going for.
Hell, watch the best of Smash Bits animations or old Singer Pillow videos and see how many jokes they managed to fit into every scene.
We never needed an indie animation renaissance. We were already there.
While yes, Alan Becker and Meat Canyon are the same with VivsyPop and Glitch when it comes to producing things that can be considered indie animation, they are not the same when it comes to their intention behind said creations. Shows like Hazbin Hotel, TADC, Murder Drones, The Gaslight District, etc. are all made with the intention of being treated as full-blown television, meant to be compared to other shows like Arcane, Adventure Time, Regular Show, Gumball, and many others. Meanwhile, with Alan and Meat Canyon, they only produce the animations they do simply for fun and the joy they get out of it. I'm not saying VivsyPop and Glitch don't produce the shows they do because they don't get fun and joy out of the creative process, but that's not a binary situation where you can either produce something for fun or for fame. You can do both.
But these people get to take the credit by giving us nothing in return other than the excuse that they're new and still getting used to it. These people have told us they'd improve over time, but after 7 years of this garbage dominating the market, I think it's pretty clear. This is not a matter of inexperience. These people are talentless.
Once again, not an objective statement, but a subjective opinion. An opinion made by a person whose media literacy is that of a guy that thinks Invisible Season 2 is good. Oh wait, that's you.
And the thing that annoys me the most is seeing other YouTubers say, well, the problem with the show is that it has bad pacing. Bad pacing is not a problem. It's the symptom of multiple problems. People said the same thing about Hazbin Hotel, as if the problem with that show is that it was too good. Dispel the delusion from your mind that Vivienne Medrano's biggest problem is that she has too many good ideas. I hope that people understand that when I say this stuff, it's not because I want to see these shows fail. It's because I love indie animation, and I want it to stay relevant as a space that encourages creativity, and these shows are killing people's interest.
These people claim they're revolutionizing animation, but what have they made so far?
We got 2 shows that are so bad they've been ridiculed off the internet.
For media illiterate reasons.
We have a show that's about to be ridiculed in a few episodes.
I didn't know you could see into the future.
A bunch of shows that are never going to be finished, and a completed show that no one cares about.
Subjective opinion.
We are in the indie animation dark age. I can assure you that 3 or 4 episodes in, Gaslight District will be just as hated as the other shows, because these shows never get better.
They don't get better to you because you refuse to actually engage with the shows, the clearest example being Murder Drones. However, I do look forward to holding you on this take when more episodes of the Gaslight District come out.
They only get worse, and they're still trying to con you. I've seen way too many people say that they're excited for Knights of Guinevere just because it was made by Dana Terrace.
And it's wrong to get excited for a new piece of art made by a person who also made another piece of art you like. Why exactly? That's like saying it's wrong for someone to be excited for a new Christopher Nolan movie because they liked Inception, which was directed by him.
Dana Terrace? You're getting your hopes up on the person that wrote The Owl House? But Rafe, she wrote Gravity Falls. else, she didn't write it, she storyboarded, and that was like 10 years ago.
Genuinely, I've never heard a single soul ever utter this claim ever in my entire life. Where are you getting this from?
After the Owl House, she's definitely cooked.
I'm gonna put that show under things that deserve their full video later on, because I'm tired of so many animated things getting away with being so terrible.
I'll be sure to stay subscribed to your channel just long enough so I can be notified when it's time to snipe that sure to be a horrendous critique out of this guy.
We all deserve better than this, and now that I'm finally back, I'm gonna have some fun making sure we get it. That's all I got for this video. Goodbye!
Well, that was one of the most poorly critiqued reviews I've ever seen, though I hope in the end I was able to clear the air and rebuttal the numerous uneducated points I was just flailing left and right across this video. All I have to say now, though, is, just do better. But just to go off script here for a bit, I'd like to thank my friend True Doom for helping me write the script for this video, especially for the parts where he was ripping into the Gaslight District, and my friend was ripping back into him for his ripping of the Gaslight District, if that makes any coherent sense. But yeah, anyway, thank you guys for watching this video if you made it this far, and be sure to like and subscribe, and I guess I'll see you in a new video whenever that comes out in the future.